300 people, 9 states, one face. They wake up and he's already there. Red flannel, axe silhouette, dead still at the foot of the bed. No one's asleep, no one's dreaming, and no one knows why the same woodsman keeps coming back. It all started for me when my own cousin, who lives up in Duluth, sent me a voice memo at 3 a.m. I still remember the way her voice shook, a raw, ragged sound, as she whispered, "There's a logger in my room." You could hear the terror, the sheer disbelief in every syllable. The next morning, I drove straight up there. She hadn't slept a wink, of course. Said the air was thick with the smell of fresh cut pine, so potent it felt like it was choking her. It wasn't just a smell, it was a presence. We sat down, opened her laptop, and that's when things got really weird. She showed me a private Reddit page, 2,000 members, strong, and almost every single post was titled, "He stood over me again." The details, identical every single time. Red black plaid, those telltale crusted boots, and a face that was just shadow, no eyes, just an absence. What really got me was how no two witnesses had ever met, yet they all sketched the exact same crooked elbow, the same distinctive checkered pattern. How could that be? Sure, sleep paralysis forums like to call these cultural overlays, the idea that your brain, when caught between sleep and waking, conjures up whatever bogeyman your culture has primed you for. Think of the old hag sitting on your chest, or the shadowy hat man. But here's the thing, the flannel man doesn't press on chests, he doesn't suffocate you, he just waits. He stands there, silent, still, watching. One nurse in Grand Rapids even timed his visit, 47 seconds, then he vanishes, just like unplugged smoke. Poof, gone. When I asked her if it felt dangerous, if she was scared, her answer chilled me to the bone. She said, "No, it feels like I owe him something." That line, that single unsettling phrase kept me up for a week straight. What could anyone possibly owe a silent spectral lumberjack? That question gnawed at me, so I started plotting the sightings. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan's UP, a few scattered pockets in Oregon, and then a really tight cluster along Washington's old logging rails. When you lay it out, it paints a picture. Every single red dot sits eerily on a forgotten lumber rail spur or directly above a shuttered paper mill. Think about that. Coincidence? Not a chance. Not when the geography starts talking this loudly. I knew I needed more, so I rang up a timber historian at the University of Minnesota. He was a bit skeptical at first, used to dealing with dry facts, not ghostly lumberjacks. But when I mentioned the locations, the specific type of flannel, something clicked. A few days later, a thick envelope arrived. Inside, a scanned image of an 1898 payroll ledger, Camp Number 9, Red River Logging. It was faded, brittle, but the details were there. One name, though, was completely blacked out with what looked like stove ash, line 37. Yet, the tally beside it showed more board feet than any other logger on that page. A note scrawled sideways in hurried script simply read, "Refuse to quit after the whistle." That whistle, I learned, was the camp's all-out signal, meant to save lives. It was supposed to blow after a boiler blew, a catastrophic event that had killed 16 men in an instant. The camp, in the wake of such a tragedy, closed overnight. The rails were ripped up by 1901, the timber long gone. All that's left today is a stretch of swamp and a lingering whisper of rumour. But here's the kicker. The sightings, those little red dots on my map, circle that swamp like moths drawn to a forgotten flame. It was too precise to ignore. Armed with this new, unsettling information, I had to see it for myself. I drove to the site. Nothing there now but whispering birch trees and a relentless swarm of mosquitoes. The air was heavy, almost expectant. The local historical society, a small dusty building tucked away in a sleepy town, keeps the camp's time clock sheets in a cardboard box. You know, the kind of place where time feels like it's holding its breath. I thumbed through the brittle pages, a flashlight clamped between my teeth, the beam dancing across names and dates, and then there it was, a sepia-toned photo, a crew of 30 loggers, all looking grim and tired. Front row, centre, one face was scratched out with a nail, but the red flannel shirt, unmistakable. On the back, in faint pencil, someone had written, "Last photo of ... never spoke again." The shirt pattern, that distinctive red-black plaid, was identical to the sketches flooding Reddit, the same one my cousin described, the same one hundreds of strangers had drawn. I asked the curator, a woman with kind eyes but a nervous twitch, who had censored the negative. She hesitated, her gaze darting to the locked door. "Family wanted him gone," she finally murmured, lowering her voice to a near whisper. "After what happened?" "What happened?" I pressed, my heart thumping a little harder. She leaned in, her voice barely audible. "The camp diary says he hauled bodies the whole night. After the boiler exploded, you see, but when the rescuers finally arrived, he was still swinging his axe at steam, screaming, 'Timber hasn't fallen yet.' They dragged him to the bunk, then to the swamp. No burial listed I left that day, with photocopies and a stomach full of ice. The image of that man, lost in a furious, endless labour, burned into my mind. It's easy to dismiss this, isn't it? Psychologists will tell you that sleep paralysis is a neurological phenomenon, a glitch in your brain's wiring. They say it can manufacture whatever your culture fears most: witches, aliens, shadowy figures in hats. But why a logger? Why this specific plaid-wearing woodsman? If it's just a trick of the mind, why the consistent details? Why the shared experience across thousands of miles by people who've never met? I phoned a folklorist, someone who's spent her life mapping out these occupational boogeymen. She explained that danger, especially the kind that lurks in dangerous professions, often gets folded into stories. Timber camps, she reminded me, were isolated, hyper-masculine worlds where death rates rivaled battlefields. Life was brutal. Story was a safety valve, a way to process the unthinkable. Fearsome critters like the agrapelta who hurled branches at unsuspecting loggers, or the hide-behind who snatched men who wandered too far, were initially jokes, tall tales told around a campfire. But then men kept dying, and those jokes, those outlandish stories, took on new jobs. They became warnings, they became cautionary tales, a way to scare greenhorns into being careful. She believes the Flannel Man is a modern critter, a caution stitched from leftover guilt, a spectre born from the harsh realities of a bygone era. He's not just a hallucination, he's a narrative. History doesn't die, she told me with a knowing smile, it just changes pyjamas. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That the unresolved tragedies of the past could manifest in our present, adapting their form, but never truly fading away. Back online, the posts were growing darker, more intense. It was like watching a slow-motion horror film unfold in real time. A guy in Seattle bolted awake, not just seeing him, but feeling something, finding pine sap on his wrists. Pine sap, how do you explain that away? A woman in Marquette, Michigan recorded 42 seconds of absolute silence on her phone after he appeared. When she played it back, hidden beneath the static, there was the faint, unmistakable sound of a distant chainsaw. Not an axe, but a chainsaw. It's evolving, adapting. Each update tightens the same knot in my gut. He's getting closer, closer to the bed frame, closer to the sleeper. I ask commenters to describe the moment he leaves. How does a spectral lumberjack exit a locked bedroom? Most say he simply turns, like he hears something deeper in the woods, something calling him, then steps through the wall as if it isn't there. One user, in a post that's since been deleted, wrote, "He's not watching us, he's listening for the whistle." That hit me, the whistle. Camp number 9's whistle, the one that never blew to end the shift, the one that should have warned those men, the one that marked the end of their lives, but not the end of his work. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is he searching for that sound, that signal, that definitive end to his eternal shift? If you've seen him, if you've had the chilling experience of the Flannel Man standing over you, drop the details, the date, the place, the distinctive shirt pattern in the comments below. We're building a live map, and every single pin, every single shared experience matters. While you're there, go ahead and punch that subscribe button. The next investigation dives into another silent ledger, another forgotten story waiting to be unearthed. One of them wrote, "We burned the bunks, but the shirts keep showing up, folded, on the empty cots." Another, a gruff man named Frank, shared an even stranger tale. He said the camp whistle, the very one I'd read about in the ledger, reappeared on a stump near the old boiler site. It was rustless, gleaming, as if it had just been forged. He'd tried to smash it with a sledgehammer, convinced it was some kind of sick prank. But the metal, he swore, didn't shatter. It sang, a low, mournful, metallic wail, like a saw hitting knots in old-growth timber. These weren't ghost hunters or paranormal enthusiasts. These were maintenance men, practical, no-nonsense types, and they were scared sober. Their stories added another layer of chilling, undeniable reality to the legend. So, why does he return? Why this relentless, silent vigil? Legend says a logger who dies on duty must finish the cut, or the forest owns his soul. It's an old woodsman's tale, a warning passed down through generations. Camp number 9, remember, shut down before he could drop the last tree, before he could finish his final impossible shift. So, he keeps clocking in, night after night, searching for the final timber that never fell, the work that was tragically interrupted. Modern bedrooms, with their quiet, enclosed spaces, are just quieter, clear cuts to him. They're the next patch of woods, the next job site, and we, the unsuspecting, comfortable inhabitants, the descendants of consumers who bought those missing board feet, the beneficiaries of that raw, brutal labour, we are the unpaid remainder. Every plank in your pine bed frame, it's a receipt. Every creak at 3 a.m, it's the tally being called. He's not a demon, he's an auditor, a tireless spectral accountant, demanding payment for a debt that's been too long outstanding. He's looking for his final piece of timber, and maybe, just maybe, he thinks it's in your house. Smash that share button if you want the next part, where we track down the only known survivor, a man who claims he actually sent the Flannel Man packing. You won't believe how he did it. And hey, comment timber below so I know you made it this far. It gives me a head count for supplies, you know, for the next trip to the woods. So no, he isn't your typical sleep paralysis demon, clawing at your chest or whispering threats. He's something far more primal, far more unsettling. He's a ledger come alive, an unpaid shift that refuses to end, stitched together from soot, steam and splintered time. He's the physical manifestation of unfinished business, a ghost of labour past. You can close your door, lock it, tell yourself it's just the wind or your imagination playing tricks. But remember this, forests regrow eventually. Debts don't. And somewhere out there, between the whistle that blew and the one that never did, a red flannel figure keeps swinging at the dark, axe raised, waiting for the last tree and the last sleeper to finally fall.